If you're a boxing fan and never want to miss a fight, Boxing Showtimes is the app you need. This is a professional boxing schedule in your pocket that keeps you up to date on what's going on in the world of boxing. Download now.
Alright people, review of the week time. So, had planned on doing this evening and then uploading it in the morning, but obviously YouTube and their brilliant lives just decide not to work on a Sunday for some reason, and not just for me, for a lot of other people are complaining about that issue. So brilliant. So we'll upload this premiere, and I'm sure the premiere won't have that bad implications, I'm sure, because it's already pre-recorded. So, a lot to talk about. We will talk and start with the card that happened last night in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and oh my good lord, main event, Fury versus Ngannou. Let's start with that. Why not? Let's start with that. So, Francis Ngannou loses a 10-round split decision to Tyson Fury, and I'm just seeing a picture of Tyson Fury's face post-fight. He's got a bit of a kind of bruise there, but a badly blackened eye. I think it's his right eye. I wouldn't say that would keep him out of action for 2 months, but if you think that we're going to get this fight in December, unfortunately, Frank Warren has all but confirmed that we won't be getting it in December. But it's not that we're not getting it, just won't be getting it in December. That right there, I cannot believe Francis Ngannou did that to Tyson Fury's face. I can't believe he dropped him. I can't believe that result. Now, Fury gave an interview with Boxing King Media. Massive shout out to them as always. Great channel. If you haven't already, go over and give them a watch. They are the number one, in my opinion, in terms of boxing interviews now. They've surpassed them all. They are number one. He said, and I quote, "You can't take anything away from Ngannou. He's a good fighter and he gave a very good fight. I trained very well and don't have any excuses. Boxing, some days you have good days, some days you don't." It's quite a dignified response, to be fair, from Tyson Fury. He's not coming out and saying, you know, what were the judges doing and he's a bum, this, that and the other. He said he trained hard for it. Now, apparently he had a 12-week camp. He looked very lethargic in there. I wonder how much of that camp was spent and taking weight off. Extra weight that he went into camp with. He said that he was about 150 pounds heavier prior to going into camp. I doubt that very much, but I don't for a minute doubt that he was too heavy going into camp and maybe spent the first couple of weeks just losing weight. Did that take away from him? I think it's a variety of things. I think that for the first time he's been in there with someone, and I didn't think Francis Ngannou would be the guy to do that, but he's in there with someone who can expose the deficiencies that have come around in Tyson Fury's game. You know, Fury, when he came back in 2018, you could tell that that wasn't the same fighter who fought Klitschko 3 years prior, and you could tell that we were probably never going to get that Fury back. In terms of being in the 240s, being comfy and healthy in the 240s, not just, you know, really boiling himself down to weigh that much. Really comfy there, really light on his feet for 12 rounds, good speed, can move, can pop the jab, defensively is switched on. I didn't think we'd ever see that Fury again. And in the Otto Wallin fight, it showed that Fury is long gone. So he went to Sugar Hill Stewart, who was able to make Fury more the front foot boxer, you know, using his jab on the front foot, walking opponents down, whilst incorporating some of the back foot elements of his game. But I think now we're starting to see even that isn't enough now for Tyson Fury, and the years of abuse that have, you know, been on his body. Because a lot of people always bring up, and I will top up the rest of the card now in a sec, but we'll talk about this briefly here. A lot of people bring up the fact that Fury, in those 2.5 years out of the ring, he ballooned in weight, which he definitely did. He was massive. I think he was nearly 400 pounds. And he was drinking a lot, which he was. And, you know, having a bit of the old, how you doing, which he no doubt was. Well, he definitely was. So there's no doubt in my mind that was happening. But what other people fail to remember is that that's not something out of the ordinary for Tyson Fury. Probably to that extreme, yeah. But he has ballooned in between fights. He always did that. Even when, you know, he was with Peter Fury to an extent. Not to a massive extent. If you want to count the Joey Abel fight out, that's the only kind of anomaly there. But he was still ballooning up in between fights. He was still drinking in between fights. So him gaining weight essentially and losing it is not anything new. And I think now, at this point in his career, being 35 years old, it's finally caught up to him. And I don't think there's any real way around it. You know, from 2019 to 2021, he was able to get away with it with the Kronk style, the front foot punching, a little bit of counter punching as well. Now I think that's starting to kind of wane. And I think the body is starting to go on Tyson Fury. Not in terms of, it's breaking down or anything like that, but I think that the speed isn't there, the reflexes aren't there. You could see he was forcing a lot of the shots in that fight. I felt that he won the fight, he just did enough to win it. I can see why people would give it to Francis Ngannou, though. I will attest to that. He definitely landed clean shots. But I think that if you look at that version of Fury, I don't think there's anything. He might be able to get a little bit better in his next camp, but in terms of Fury being at his optimum, I don't think we're going to get that anytime soon. I think that might be well and truly gone. And if you're Alexander Usyk, I know it's a different style to what Francis Ngannou is, but if you're Alexander Usyk, you got to be looking at that thinking, oh my God, give me that fight as soon as can be. Because this is, for me, this is easy. I'm sure he's going to be thinking that based off that performance. I'm sure Fury thought when he's seen the Dubois fight, okay, he's vulnerable, he's slowed down a little bit. He might have regressed enough that, okay, it's an even playing field. But I think now he's realised that, hang on a sec, Usyk, I don't think he's regressed. But he might look and think, okay, he's a bit vulnerable to the body, he's regressed a little bit in speed, I've got him. And then he's had that performance and thought, oh crap, he might be a little bit slower, but damn, I'm way slower. And honestly, that version of Fury who fought Ngannou, you put him in there with Joshua, with Deontay Wilder, who came in Deontay Wilder maybe, who was a bit lighter than he was in the third fight. You put him in there against the Frank Sanchez, Alexander Usyk, people like that. They would have beaten Tyson Fury last night. And they probably would have stopped them, truth be told. I think the majority would have. So a lot of work needs to happen for Fury. I'll touch on it more in a wee bit, but we'll talk about the undercard now. Adeleye versus Fabio Wardley. Got the prediction wrong. I really expected more out of David Adeleye. Quite disappointed in him, really. Out of the two, I expected Adeleye to be the one to hold it together mentally. I really did. I thought that Fabio Wardley, his lack of experience, his lack of being on this grand stage, the fact that he came from a white-collar background in terms of that was the white-collar boxing, I thought that would all be too much for him, and we would see him capitulate mentally, his technique would go, and Adeleye would be stronger of will, physically stronger, and would just be able to wear him down. There'd be fireworks, there'd be a good fight. We didn't see that. And the person who I felt let the occasion get to him was David Adeleye. He didn't let his shots go. All that bravado going into the fight, never showed it. Didn't let his shots go. When he did throw them, they were sloppy, they were swings, he was windmilling at times. He looked awful in there. And he got taken out in the 7th round. And some would argue was the stoppage a little bit premature. Yeah, I could definitely say that probably was a little bit, but at the same time, I don't have massive arguments with it at the same time, having watched it back. I always do not like it a little bit when the referee stops it just before the round's going to end. But the writing was on the wall for Adeleye. This isn't like Josh Warrington and Lee Wood, where one guy was in control, he gets caught and he gets taken out. Adeleye was getting beaten from pillar to post. He didn't win a round on one of the judges' scorecards, and you can only really say the second round he was a little bit competitive. Other than that, it was all Fabio Wardley, so credit to him. I've seen people mention Joseph Parker as a potential next opponent, and obviously Parker got a good knockout win over Simon Keane, looked very good in there, looked very devastating. I don't like the fact he weighed in at 250 pounds. I've always said Parker in the 230s, high 230s to low 240s is a good weight for him. Anything over that is too heavy, but he did look powerful in there, to be fair, and I'll give him all the credit in the world for that. He wasn't in there with much. Simon Keane is no great shakes, but Joseph Parker still needed to get the job done. That was that. Arslanbek Makhmudov knocking out junior Anthony Wright. Anthony Wright, who has been, as low as cruiserweight, got knocked out by Shumanov a couple of years ago. Shumanov, who's really a light heavyweight. I wasn't expecting much from him. Makhmudov, first round KO, devastating as you would expect. Highly ranked by the WBC, just below Joshua and Wilder. So always like watching Makhmudov. We'll keep an eye on him. Takam knocking out, Bacoli stopping Carlos Takam in 4 rounds. 299.5 pounds for Martin Bacoli, 300 pounds essentially, and he looked huge in there. But he didn't look the fastest as you'd expect someone weighing that much, but the composure he showed was crazy. And Takam is durable, and for Bacoli to just go in there, and bear in mind Takam went the distance with Arslanbek Makhmudov, so Takam is durable, and to go in there against Bacoli and just get blown away in 4 rounds. He never touched down, but the writing was on the wall in that 4th round. It really was. Moses Atelma getting the first round knockout win as well. He looked very, very good in there, Moses Atauma. Hopefully they'll be able to get him out. They'll probably get him out on the November card in Manchester or the December card, more than likely that one in London, which has Hamza Sheeras versus Liam Williams on it. So they'll probably get him out for them. So that'd be 7 fights in a year, which is not bad going, to be fair. And you never know, they might stick him out. They could probably stick him out on both cards, to be fair, if he goes and gets the job done easy on them. So he could very well get the 8 fights in a year. So that was the card in Saudi. I had a little WhatsApp text with Ade earlier, and he was saying that event was the best event he's ever been to. He said it was one of the best experiences of his life being there. He said there was no event he's ever been to like it. He said it was like the opening ceremony of the Olympics. He'd never seen anything like it. My only gripe was we had to wait a flipping hour for the main event to take place, which was annoying, but I get where he's coming from. It was insane looking to be there. It really was. So we go on to the zone card that happened in Cancun in Mexico. What a fight. Usyk Foster stopping Eduardo Hernandez in the 12th round, round 11. Damn. Eduardo Hernandez, what do you say? I mean, he was doing very well in there. Boxing very well. It was awkward. It was given angled. So it meant that Usyk Foster really was having trouble pinning him down. And he gets taken out in the last round. Unbelievable. Incredible fight. One judge, right, just to put it in context, had Hernandez 110-99 in the last round. So if he'd won the last round, or even if he'd lost the last round 10-8, he would have still won this fight on both judges' scorecards. Something like that, fighters will struggle to come back from. Now, the kid is only 25 years old. He got knocked out in a round by Roger Guerrero back in 2019, which that's something that is a worry, certainly to say the least. But I'd love to see this fight again. Run it back. Run this fight back, because that fight was absolutely something else. There was some really good fights on over the weekend. Really was. I mean, that Saudi Arabian card, I'm going to harp back onto that. It was absolutely insane. Like, the fights on it were fun. They really were. And we go back to talking about this briefly. Frank Warren has stated here that Tyson Fury vs Alexander Usyk will not take place as initially planned on December the 23rd. He's now confirmed that he insists that the undisputed fight, however, will take place likely late January or February, which is still in Riyadh season, so it won't be outside that season, so they're pushing it back. I'm not too surprised with that. At the end of the day, both these guys are signed to fight. And I remember it was Tyson Fury who said that whatever way the legal implications are with this fight being signed, the only way out of it is retirement. Now, some people are speculating that he may very well do that rather than go down this road based upon how he looked last night against Francis Ngannou. I don't think he will. I think that if Fury was to retire and then say come back in a year or so, and I mean give away the vacated BBC title, if he was to come back in a year, the fans, even his die-hard fans, the fans who will defend him no matter what, I would say even they would have trouble defending that. Because that would be as blatant a duck as you will ever see. And he's been ducking Usyk all this year. Right? And that would just be as blatant. And I think that his credibility, even with his die-hard fans, would just plummet. So I don't think he'll do that. I think he's kind of got a situation now where he's going to have to fight Alexander Usyk. And based upon that performance, many people would make Usyk favourite, firm favourite. Because you look at Fury and how he looked, you would say all the advantages are going to lie with Alexander Usyk, apart from reach and natural weight. But in terms of speed, it is going to be night and day between those two guys. And the Saudis have put a lot of money up for this fight. A hell of a lot of money up for this fight. So for me, it's like you kind of goosed, you're going to have to do it, you know. And I want to see Undisputed. I've said that before. I really want to see Undisputed. So you're in a situation now, Fury, where you've signed that contract. You're going to have to fulfill it because the Saudis are putting the money up. You want to get it done in Riyadh season, you have until March to do it. You got to get it done. So I know that black guy, he'll probably need a couple of weeks to heal. Maybe 2 weeks, it'd be grand, it'd be perfect. and you're back in the gym, because he is definitely going to need it. And of course, Eddie Hearn had his say on Tyson Fury. He said, "I'm absolutely lost for words. Fury looked like he never laced up a pair of gloves before. I thought Ngannou won by 2 rounds. That's very generous, but you would expect that from Hearn. He says, "Forget Fury Usyk. No one's interested. Just give us Fury AJ. AJ will knock Fury out inside 6 rounds. He is a promoter. You would expect that. But what do you mean forget about Fury Usyk? We want to see undisputed, Eddie. So no, let's not forget about Fury Usyk. Based upon that performance, I would pick Joshua. But what's it like? Does Eddie Hearn really think that Joshua, given a 3rd shot, will beat Alexander Usyk? I'm sure even he doesn't think that. But no." And interestingly, Billy Joe, who wasn't there last night, he hasn't really been a part of Team Fury since the Canelo fight. He says, too many yes men in the camp, not switched on from the word go, but he switched on for Alexander Usyk. That's interesting, Billy Joe saying that, too many yes men. I wouldn't class Sugar Hill Stewart as a yes man. I'd class him as a very serious individual who knows what he's talking about. The same with Andy Lee, to be fair. I know he's cousins with Tyson Fury. I wouldn't class him as a yes man. What's his name? John Fury? What would John Fury... Maybe that's who he's alluding to. I know there is... I don't want to say beef with Billy Joe and Tyson Fury, but they've not been on the best terms since that whole security thing at the Canelo fight a couple of years ago. So I wonder, is Billy Joe, maybe taking it... Well, I'd say he probably is taking a dig at members of Team Fury with that. Absolutely insane the event was. And what I'm looking through, the feed here where I get all my news, it's literally just all the event, like the event in Saudi. And I don't want to make review of the week all about that, because it's not all about that. And here we go. Canelo versus Jaime Munguia reportedly could take place in May. Says Canelo versus Benavidez is being contemplated for September. So Canelo, because I've heard that Canelo, he's signed into a 3-fight deal with PBC, but obviously PBC's last 3 Showtime shows, are coming up now in the month of December. So what does that mean moving forward? What network are PBC going to fight on? Is he going to go back to the Zone? What's going to happen? Well, apparently the Showtime deal is still valid. So his next 2 fights, even after Showtime pull out, will still be Showtime pay-per-view. They are going to do what HBO said they would do but never did, which is show occasional pay-per-view fights. So they will do, and they'll make money on Canelo fights, obviously, everyone does. So they'll make money on them. In terms of any other fights, though, they probably wouldn't make money on. In terms of Anthony Joshua, good news, back in the gym with Derek James. That is exactly what you want to see. We sure as hell did not want to see him change trainer again, because he is still talking about fighting in the month of December. Now, you got to bear in mind, we are now at the very, very end of October. So if he's to fight in the month of December, it will be an announcement in round about the next fortnight, you would imagine, to get enough hype around it, enough prep around it. December the 23rd for Eddie Hearn is now apparently free. So we're seeing Conor Benn and Chris Eubank start having back and forths on Twitter again. Whether that takes place in the UK or not remains to be seen. But that date is now free for him. So is he probably going to look at maybe putting on a Joshua fight against someone like an Otto Wallin? Because Otto Wallin, interestingly, I seen an interview that I think it was Andy from Boxing Social did with him, or was Boxing Social, not with Boxing Social more, Andy from Boxing News did with Otto Wallin, where he was basically paraphrasing here, saying that he wouldn't take step-aside money to let Joshua fight Hrgovic. Well, how's about Otto Wallin versus Joshua in the month of December? That fight would be an absolute stinker, I believe, because I think Joshua would try and box with Otto Wallin, and Otto Wallin is happy to do that. It would not be the most compelling viewing, but if they want to fight for a vacant title, if they usurp the number 2 ranked, there you go. You'll be number 2 ranked in his place. So you then theoretically are in a position to fight for the vacant title. Seems like the Wilder fight... It's weird because Joshua's mentioning Wilder, and Hearn is kind of... Now he's talking about Fury, he's talking about, Filip Hrgovic. It seems to me as though, like, Joshua is focusing on the Wilder fight, but Hearn is looking elsewhere. And it's Joshua who gets the final say, in all fairness. He's the one who decides who he's going to fight next. Eddie Hearn is the promoter. But it's Joshua who says, I'm going to be the one fighting him. So Eddie Hearn could be saying, we'll do Filip Hrgovic next. But if Joshua is keen on Wilder and they can get that fight wherever in the world, whether it be in Saudi, whether it be in the UK, whether it be in America, if that's the fight he's looking at next, then happy days. Well, obviously maybe not next, maybe looking to have the December date. But still thereafter, look, we all want to see AJ versus Wilder. I know I do. I know the majority of fans want to see that fight. Let's see AJ Wilder. We all want to see that fight. Naoya Inoue has announced that him versus Marlos Tablis will take place on Boxing Day, December 26th in Tokyo, Japan. Merry Christmas. So Inoue is just, we have to just love Naoya Inoue. A guy at that weight who just gets the job done, is absolutely devastating, tremendous punching power. We need to enjoy Naoya Inoue while we have him. He's 30 going on 31, so I reckon another 3 to 4 years of him firing on all cylinders, maybe. Naoya Inoue is absolutely, we like Naoya Inoue. We really do. I'm seeing also here, Alexander Usyk said that he was actually shouting instructions to Tyson Fury to try and help him. He says, I was nervous that our fight is in jeopardy. I even started shouting at him things like, use your jab, jabbing faster. It looks weird, but the whole world wants to see this fight. That's why it's important that we do everything possible to make this fight. I can imagine Alexander Usyk. Can you imagine, so Evander Holyfield was there ringside when Buster Douglas fought Mike Tyson. And I know obviously he ended up fighting Buster Douglas for the title. But I'm sure when he was watching that fight, he must have been thinking, crap. What the hell has just happened? There goes that Tyson payday. There goes Undisputed all. I'm sure at the time he must have been watching that thinking, crap. And I'm sure Alexander Usyk was looking at that fight last night thinking, crap. What happens if he loses? Yes, he'll still be champion. But going into Undisputed with a loss to Ngannou, I'm sure Usyk must have been thinking, will they put the money up? And if they don't put the money up, who the hell will put the money up? Well, he's just lost his last fight to a UFC champion. Are we going to put massive money up to have this fight? And then obviously if there's no massive money, Tyson Fury, I'm sure Usyk, a lot of thoughts were going through his head last night. I can imagine. I would have liked to have been in his head seeing what exactly he was thinking during the fight. But that's probably one of the reasons as well why a lot of people are speculating that Fury was able to get the nod. Look, it was a close fight, right? Do I think that played a factor? It probably did, yeah. But it was a genuinely close fight. Now, there are some people out there, and again, these really need their head examined, saying that they felt that the fight was fixed. You know what, right? When some people say that they feel certain fights are fixed, when you look at them, you could say, maybe. And do I doubt that fight fixing goes on? No, certainly not. I'm sure there are certain fights that are definitely fixed, 100%. But when you look at a fight like that, and you look at the worry in Fury's face, when his eye gets bruised, when he gets dropped, when he's struggling to land, when he's forcing his shots, you're going to look me and tell me that fight was fixed. I'm going to tell you you're an idiot. And that's what I'm going to tell you, because there's no way they ever would have fixed that fight. Fury would have had to have been, Heath Ledger, Jack Nicholson, all rolled into one in terms of an actor. Because that would have been the most amazing display of acting I have ever seen. And that was not that. Hell no. And Fury, when it comes to actually reading lines off scripts like he did in WWE, he's not particularly convincing. He's not particularly good and able to assert himself when he's not saying things off the top of his head. That fight was definitely not fixed. Those saying it was a fixed fight, hell no, it was definitely not. What some people always say, right, and I get where they're coming from with this, that a fighter, if they are, trying to entice their opponent, but they're not sure if they'll accept it, they'll maybe look a little bit vulnerable to give the opponent a false sense of security and maybe may give them an incentive to sign. Some people speculate that's what Triple G did with Danny Jacobs. I don't believe that, never have, because for me, if you're going to let your opponent have moments in there, then you're not going to nearly lose a fight and leave it in the hands of the judges if you don't have to, like Triple G did against Danny Jacobs. Danny Jacobs, I thought, won that fight, right? And it was razor close on the scorecards, razor close. You're not going to do that if you're trying to incentivize someone to fight you, because you nearly could risk losing. And if you lose, well, then you're not going to get the fight at all. You might lose a round or two, and might maybe pull back from a few shots and let the fight go on a little bit longer, but you're not going to go and make the fight razor close just to say, like, oh, well, Now, he'll definitely fight me. You're not going to do that. You know, so when people say, look, oh, he did it deliberately. No, I think he was struggling in there. I think that his body, this has been mainly Fury and Ngannou, hasn't it? But I think his body is just done. I think in terms of going through a hard training camp and being in the ring on fight night, I just think his body is just done. For that kind of training anyway, I think that it's the wear and tear in his body. It's caught up to him. Simple as that. And I think that's what happened with Tyson Fury last night. Didn't help that he was in there with someone who was an absolute beast in terms of physical strength. And yeah, I think that's all that really happened last night. I think it's as simple as that. So that's my thoughts on it. In terms of reviewing the week, we reviewed the cards, but there hasn't been an awful lot to do. It's been mainly dominated by this Fury and Ngannou thing. But I hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to get this up this evening because I think YouTube lives are a little bit all over the shop. So we'll do a live tomorrow instead. It's a bank holiday here in Ireland. We'll do that tomorrow. I will leave it there, people. I hope you enjoyed the video. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. For now, I will leave you with that. Peace. And by the way, actually, before I say peace, I always end these with, I hope you all have a great week. I hope the phone rings with some good news for somebody. Great weeks all around for everyone listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Lads, I will also point out that we hit some milestones these last few days because we started the week last week with just shy of 13,400. We end the week with 13,722. That is incredible. Nearly 400 subs in a week. We are going to hit 20k in no time. Trust me. Thank you to everyone who locked in. Really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed it. Peace.